Hello, Leafs Nation! I don't know, man. You got to keep the energy up in times like this because the NHL is going haywire. I don't know what's going on in the nowadays. So weird. Um, First of all, I think we should talk about what's going on in Edmonton because they lost to the San Jose Sharks last night, and lots of defense and goaltending issues there. And I don't know how you solve goaltending and defense issues mid-season. It's a cautionary tale for a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs because the goaltending doesn't play better and the defense definitely doesn't get better. The Leafs and Edmonton are going to be in the exact same boat. Now, it's a testament to the Leafs, I think. Um, as Leafs fans, we get upset and we talk about the play of this guy and the play of that guy. It's easy to point at the guys that are not playing good, but I think if you're really paying attention, it's a testament to how good the Leafs' best players are, how good the Leafs' top six is, or even the top nine at this point. Because the last game versus the Ottawa Senators, I mean, Willie scores a nice goal. Um, Domi gets tripped, keeps skating, moving his feet, backhand sauce, which was absolutely filthy, to Nick Robertson, and Nicky Bobby gets a goal. And the offense is not an issue. I think if you look at the only real difference between the Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers is right now is that the Leafs top nine is dragging this team uh, to wins. And the Leafs defense is no good. Outside of maybe Riley, Brody, and Liljegren, I would say the Leafs defense is very weak. And, you know, watching that game versus the Ottawa Senators, uh, Klingberg and Giordano were pretty much on the ice for every single goal. And Klingberg falling all over the place, not knowing who to cover, where to be. He looks lost out there. There's no way you can dress that guy. You need to scratch him, and you need to really coach him up before you put him into the lineup again. And Giordano at this point, I mean, uber slow, makes a lot of bad decisions. Not great with the first pass out of the zone. I mean, he's 40. He's been in the NHL a long time. He's won a Norris. He's been on cup contenders. You know, he's a he should be a sixth or seventh defenseman making $800,000, and at this point you got to put him out of his misery. I mean, you can't, you can't pretend to be a contender or want to contend or want to be a playoff team that goes deep in the playoffs when you start the season with Fraser Minton on the third lines center spot, and you have guys like Klingberg and Giordano in the lineup. It's just not going to work. I mean, say all you want about Kyle Dubas, but Kyle Dubas at the end of the day is not a GM like Tree Living who is signing guys for their names and there's no substance, right? Brad Tree Living went out there and got Domi, he got Bertuzzi, he got Klingberg, and at the end of the day, he got a bunch of guys with names but no real substance. And do they fit in the lineup? Are they the type of players that you want on your team? Because at the end of the day, yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi is great. DeBrincat is great. There's a lot of good players out there, but you can't just put anybody on any, right? You got to have a guy who plays your style, who can. If you're a puck possession speedy team, then you gotta go after a guy that knows how to create puck possession, who can hold on to the puck, who can move his feet, who can make plays. And at the end of the day, it's you can't, you know, the season started off with one major issue is the fans that fell in love with Fraser Minton, and you couldn't deny him on the team, which management should have known better. If you really want to contend for the Stanley Cup, you can't have Fraser Minton as your third line center. I'm sorry. You cannot. Maybe on a team like the Boston Bruins, whose structure is so amazing that you could insulate the guy, sure. But not on the Leafs, where defense is non existent. Structure, team structure is non existent, right? The Leafs don't play with structure and they don't play with defensive poise. It's a lot of, that's why I think Bertuzzi is having issues acclimating himself to the Toronto Maple Leafs, just because when he went to the Boston Bruins from Detroit, Boston is a team that plays with structure, they play with poise. They play the same way every single night. They're committed to 3-1 wins. They're not committed to 6-5 wins like the Oilers and the Leafs. So it's easy to go into that system and start playing hockey because you have everybody has a clear defined role, everybody has a clear defined position, where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. If you turn over the puck in your own zone, there's no scramble. Everybody just instinctively knows where to go, how to stop the cycle, get the puck out of the zone. And I think that's what that's why it's so easy for some players to go to the Boston Bruins and just fit right in. Right? The Leafs are not that type of team. You can't just take any guy off of any team and put him on the Toronto Maple Leafs, because if he doesn't have a certain skill set, he's not gonna thrive on the Leafs. So it is what it is with Bertuzzi. I think he's getting better. I think he's gonna figure it out. He scored a nice goal in the Ottawa Senators game. Didn't look too bad against Tampa, and you know Tampa has some serious PTSD right now because the Leafs came back from 4-1 again. Embarrassing that this team comes into Toronto or plays Toronto and they run their mouth over and over and over and over again. Sergachev in the off season talking shit about the Leafs. Oh, we had a long summer. We're not used to long summers. The Leafs are used to long summers. Just real sour about losing to the Leafs. And then the season starts, and then John Cooper, who is the fakest douchebag in the NHL, says a bunch of decent things and and gives the Leafs backhanded compliments and Stamkos, and then twice they gave up a 4-1 lead to the Leafs. The Leafs just said, "Hey, we're gonna spot you four, and then we're just gonna turn it on and show you how good we are twice." The Leafs are clearly in Tampa's head. PTSD is hardcore. Like, they're dealing with it. And then their coach, after the game, gives the Leafs zero credit and just says, you know, we gave it to them. We just handed it over on a platter. That's what we did. Oh, you guys weren't trying hard at all. It's not like you were running guys into the boards and starting scrums. So you guys weren't trying at all. It's just fell asleep is what happened. Okay. So it is what it is. Because the Leafs, you know, the Leafs, have shown. I think it just goes back to what I said. Like the Leafs go down 2 to Boston, come back, tie that game up, go to overtime, don't give up the goal, lose in a shootout, and then there's the Buffalo Sabres game where it's back and forth. You score, I score. You score, I score. But the Leafs' defense and goaltending didn't hold up. And then you had the Tampa game where the Leafs just went off offensively. And it's not fair, right? Like, Leafs in the first period versus the Tampa Bay Lightning uh, were tentative, you know, defensive mess, really tentative all over the ice, not knowing what to do. All of a sudden, the second period starts, Wolves and net, and they're a completely different team, and then they take over and win that game. It's not fair to Samsonov, right? Like, Samsonov in the Boston game made a lot of crazy saves, kept the team in it, didn't give up the third goal, and the Leafs came back and they took it overtime and got a point out of it. And Samsonov is fighting it right now, but the guy is grinding it out, and you got to give him a little bit of respect. You got to give him some props for playing the way he did in that Boston game because the Leafs broke down all over the ice, and Bruins were in front of the net, all around the net, and he made some good saves. To get the Leafs a point in that game. But, Joseph Wall in the Ottawa game, that first goal that went underneath his pad, he was just trying to slide and kick it into the corner. I mean, shaky from the start. And then he turns it over for the last goal behind the net. Like, the Leafs are a defensive mess, yes, but the goalies aren't helping out right now. They're making a lot of mistakes, giving up soft goals. Where if you just make the saves that you're supposed to, I think the Leafs beat the Sabres and the Ottawa Senators, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, it's big boy hockey, and you got to make certain tough decisions. And the first tough decision is you have to waive Giordano. If he wants to retire, fine. If not, put him in the minors, let him earn his salary, his 850,000, and bring up a young, hungry player. Lagesson hasn't looked bad. Benoit hasn't looked bad. Um, Jake McCabe is back in the lineup tonight. Klingberg is out, which is so. Klingberg you have to scratch. Giordano you have to waive. You can waive Klingberg because of his 4.15 million contract, and Ryan Reeves cannot dress every single night. I mean, I've always said it. You don't need Wayne Simmons and you don't need Ryan Reeves on the team, right? All this, fake toughness stuff, like it's stupid. It's something that the media in this town feeds the fan base whenever they're not going well. Oh, how come you didn't, the whole team bench didn't jump on this guy after the whistle? The Leafs historically have been destroyed by that kind of mentality, right? Whether it's in the playoffs and Darcy Tucker takes someone's head off, or it's in the playoffs and Domi takes someone's head off, or it's in the playoffs and Kadri goes to hit somebody and gets a 7-game suspension. Meanwhile, everybody else in the NHL for the same hit gets 1 or 2 max. David Clarkson jumps off the bench, gets a 10-game, and ruins his entire tenure as a Toronto Maple Leaf without even playing a game. Um, it's just the Leafs historically have never been allowed to act like that, right? Like the Boston Bruins get away with it, the Kachuk brothers get away with it, Corey Perry gets away with it, Kucherov gets away with it. There's certain guys in the NHL where they could just put their stick between your legs, lift you up by your crotch, and there's nothing's going to happen. It's not even a penalty at some time. Sometimes it's not even a penalty. So it is what it is. The NHL has deemed that the Leafs cannot behave this way. They have historically overpunished the Leafs for this type of behavior. There's a reason why the Leafs don't build their team like that. First of all, Ryan Reeves, he could be the toughest, but the guy plays the hockey the right way and he plays with a code. So he's not going to go grab a shrimp like Brad Marchand and start punching away. He's not going to go grab a shrimp like Braden Point or somebody like that and start wailing away. He's only going to fight a heavyweight. And most teams don't have a heavyweight, right? I mean, Brad Marchand goes and takes Lilligren into the boards, and guess what? What's it? First of all, Boston gets last change, so they're never going to have Brad Marchand on the ice with Ryan Reeves for him to even chase him around. And second of all, they're supposed to have Lucic, and Lucic was supposed to be the heavyweight. And where was Lucic? Nowhere. So what's Ryan Reeves supposed to do? It's a waste of money. It's a waste of a roster spot. Bring up a young, hungry player like a McMahon. Robertson has already been called up and looked great. He's got 2 points in 2 games, a goal and an assist. They're feeding you nonsense. If you've been watching hockey for 20, 30, whatever amount of years, and you've been in this town watching the Leafs, I don't know how it's possible for you fans to swallow the bullshit that TSN brings up tough guys when they have nothing to talk about. Toughness is not a one player thing. It's either your team is tough or you're not. It's either something happens to a guy and everybody on the ice jumps in or nobody jumps in. Having Ryan Reeves on the bench is so stupid. They told you guys, oh, everyone feels like they're a couple of inches taller. I can't believe you guys are buying these bullshit cliches. They're selling you nonsense because they have nothing to talk about. The Leafs are a good team. They don't need crazy tough guys and spend $1 million, 1.3 on Reeves. It's a stupid thing. Toughness is not a one player thing. And if it is, he's sitting on the bench because he plays maybe 9 or 10 minutes a night. So to say, oh, the Leafs had a lack of response, you obviously don't understand what the DNA of Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander, and John Tavares is. These four players do not get into scraps. They don't get into altercations after the whistle. They don't do it. It's not in their DNA. For you to waste a roster spot and the money on a guy like Ryan Reeves or Wayne Simmons or Kyle Clifford, it doesn't matter who you bring in, it's not going to change the culture of the team. It's not going to happen. Stop buying this bullshit about team toughness. Everybody goes on a rant on the internet an incident like the Timothy Liljegren incident happens. Oh, I can't believe the lack of response. Listen, if you've been watching hockey since Matthews and Marner were drafted, and today you think that the Leafs should respond and will respond in a physical way, you are smoking crack. Like, it's not going to happen. Never. As long as the core four is Riley, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and Matthews, there will be no physical altercations. They don't have it in their DNA. If you want that to be your team, go follow another team that's built that way, or you have to completely change the core four, which I think is completely unnecessary. The Leafs are so good in their top six or top nine that they're dragging themselves to wins with scoring and they're outscoring their issues. And their issues is you got two goalies that are struggling. Joseph Woll, for some reason, when he comes in and he doesn't start, he's amazing. If he starts, he's shit. And Samsonov has had a couple of good games. I believe the Minnesota Wild game and the Boston Bruins game were his two best games. But he's up and down. But the Leafs defense can be addressed. One, you sit Klingberg and you waive Giordano. You got to waive Reeves. Bring in some young, hungry players like McMahon. These guys finish checks. These guys take people into the boards. They're a little bit more physical on the forecheck. It's a more well-rounded fourth line. It doesn't make any sense to play David Kampf with Reeves. And then you see all these fans complaining online. David Kampf is useless. David Kampf sucks. Listen, you can't put David Kampf on a line with Reeves, who plays less than 10 minutes a night. The guy produces zero offensive zone time, zero puck possession. He's not doing anything for anybody, and then expect David Kampf to do what by himself? What is it that you're expecting David Kampf to do by himself on the fourth line? Like I don't understand fans. If you think David Kampf sucks, What is it that you're expecting from him on the fourth line with Ryan Reed? What is, you expect him to produce goals, offensive zone time? You want him to just take the puck and start skating around like William Nylander? You want him to start, cycling the puck down low? Who's he cycling it with? William Nylander, when he's cycling the puck, he's got Tavares, he's got Nyes. It could be, you know, any combination of guys, Matthews, Marner, whatever. These guys cycle puck because there's talent there. Who's David Camp supposed to cycle the puck with? Who's he supposed to create offensive zone time with? It's it's crazy how many people go online and just complain about how bad players are, but refuse to understand the concept, or you know you're not like you got to have context. You can't just say Camp sucks. Why does he suck? He was great last year, one of the Leafs' best penalty killers, and was playing great when he was playing with Ingval and Mikheyev. Why? Because those guys all had speed, all had the capability of making plays and skating with the puck. So they created offensive zone time. They did all these things. And now it's like, oh, Camp sucks. Camp hasn't changed his game. The guy is the exact same player. But what happens is his line mates are garbage, and so the guy plays bad. It's not necessarily his fault. The context is that line is garbage, and Reeves is pulling down that line such a bad level that players look bad. Just like Giordano and Klingberg combination on defense is like the most atrocious thing in the end. But you gotta say, gotta take stats and things in context. You can't say, oh well, Camp is garbage or Giordano's garbage. Giordano, yes, he's old and he's slow. He's incapable of getting somewhere really fast, turning over the puck. He's just good at blocking shots. And God bless him, he's done a lot of shot blocking in his career. But he's 40 years old. He's literally the oldest player in the NHL. And what the Leafs need right now, he can't provide. So he's an $800,000 contract. You waive him, send him down to the minors, and you bring up, a puck mover, or there's Benoit, there's Lagesson, there's Lajoie. These guys have already played and look decent, but you have puck movers and good defensemen down there like Mikko Kokkonen. You have Topi Niemela. Like, these guys can move the puck at least. They can skate to it fast. They can get it and move it. And Topi Niemela is a smooth skating defenseman who pretty much runs the power play in the offense for the Marlies. But yeah, so it's we got the Calgary Flames tonight and we got the Vancouver Canucks tomorrow, and if the Leafs get decent amount of goaltending right now, as it looks like, um, Sheldon Keefe has said that John Klingberg has an injury and he's not playing tonight. I think he's just being scratched, or whatever his injury was in training camp. It looks like it's lingering, and hopefully Giordano's not in the lineup, or if he is, he's being heavily, heavily protected on the third pair. But Jake McCabe is back in, and we'll see what happens with that. It's you know the Flames aren't necessarily a great team. They're not really scoring a ton of goals, so playing defense and helping out the goaltender should be easier tonight. But whatever the Leafs are going through, at least they're not the Oilers. But goaltending and defense can quickly get you there. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many goals you score. You got to be able to play defense, and it's shocking what's going on this season with the Leafs. Just because last year they were so good defensively, they were so like everything was just locked down. It was stitched up. They didn't start the season good, but they quickly turned it around in their defense. was like their defensive game was really good last year. But that's what happens, right? We have a market who hates Justin Hall, who hates Kerfoot, who hates this guy, who hates that guy. You got to understand that these are $2 to $3 million players. You can go out and get other $2 to $3 million players, but expecting a $2 or $3 million player to make a significant contribution or to move the needle on a contender. If you're a contender, the guys who are going to make you contenders, or if you're ever going to win a Stanley Cup, is going to be based on Riley, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, and hopefully your goaltender gets hot. Like if you look at last year, the Florida Panthers were unmitigated disaster. Couldn't score goals, very choppy. Defensively, they were garbage. Goaltending was up and down. But then all of a sudden, goalie got hot in the play. They barely made the playoffs on the last day. And then their goaltender got hot, and then all of a sudden they're in the third round of the playoffs. So you have to understand, if you hate Kerfoot and you wanted him gone, who's he being replaced with? Somebody who's not good defensively, and the Leafs are getting scored on. Kerfoot was very good defensively. You hated Justin Hall, one of the Leafs' best penalty killers. Now he's in Detroit. People didn't like Ingvall because he was soft, but at least the Leafs weren't bad defensively. Mikheyev, don't pay him. He's in Vancouver. Everybody loves him in Vancouver. He actually looks pretty good in Vancouver. Lafferty is another guy, people were down on. He got traded. He looks good in Vancouver. So, it's you can't have a 10-player turnover every offseason and expect any level of continuity when the season starts. People say this, first of all you hear is that the regular season doesn't matter. But clearly it does because the entire fan base is losing them. So the regular season does matter. And if you wanna fire and trade everybody, there is no continuity. You have to build some continuity. And a guy like Justin Hall, let's just say Justin Hall was a healthy scratch under Mike Babcock. He skated with the team. They worked him up. They got his skating better. They got his playmaking better. And then when Sheldon Keefe came, all of a sudden Justin Hall became a contributing member because he was with the team for so long. He eventually got an opportunity, and they trained him up. Justin Hall at one point wasn't very good. They trained him up. He practiced with the team for a long time. He got some skills. Like you can't just fire and trade everybody. You need continuity on your team, and like you got to spend wisely, right? People didn't want to sign Bunting. They're like, Bunting has to go. Guess what? The Leafs just spent almost 5.5 and 4 point something on Klingberg and Bertuzzi. That's $10 million. For $10 million, you could have, Hyman and Bunting. You could have Bunting and, you know, you can have for 10 million. You could have Bunting, Kerfoot, and Kemp as your third line. You know what I'm saying? It's a tough situation in Toronto. We want this team to win. We want results, but we're very impatient. We say that the regular season doesn't matter, but we lose our mind after every regular season. And, you know, it's an up and down roller coaster for a lot of people. They can't control their emotions at all when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs at all. So it is what it is. And but guys like Domi and Bertuzzi are coming around, and like I always knew they would. It takes time. You can't judge a player in a situation with only 10 games. But the defense is really bad. Like the defense in general, other than Riley, Brody, and Liljegren, has to change. McCabe is no good. Giordano's no good. Klingberg is no good. Simon Benoit and Lagesson, can play minutes here and there if there are injuries, and they can help out. but these guys are not long-term solutions, and the Leafs have to start by, waiving Giordano and then start making some trades because if you want to be legitimate, if you want to be a good team and you want to be a contender and you want to do all these good things in the playoffs and win rounds, you can't go into the playoffs with, Fraser Minton as your third line center, and you can't do it with this defense. So it is what it is. You guys let me know what you think. You know, Fraser Minton started the first big mistake this season was Fraser Minton on the third line. 3 games into this gone, and we traded Lafferty, who we need. We need a guy like Lafferty, right? And then, other mistakes in terms of signing Reeves, signing Klingberg. It's time for the management to get real. Either you punt on this season or you start making some changes because this is not going well. But like I said, you guys let me know what your thoughts were. What do you think about Fraser Minton on start the team in the Lafferty trade? Uh, you know, did the Leafs just waive Giordano or try to make a trade and get him a job somewhere else? Maybe he can continue his career. He is only making 850,000 or something like that, and uh, if you waive him, you can bury up to 1.15 million minors. So, like I said, if Ryan Reeves gets waived at one point and he can't play in the NHL anymore, you put him down into the minors, and then all of a sudden, you just got a $200,000 cap hit for Reeves for the couple of years. That's where he ends up. But you guys let me know. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of TML Domain. We're talking about the issues. We're always positive. Go Leafs, go. We're looking for back-to-back wins in Calgary and Vancouver. Let's see what happens. Talk to you guys next week. I appreciate you tuning in. Like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good day.